Hey, how's it going? Mike from LI Flies Mike, and I wanted to shout out the folks at Squimpish Flies. We've been on their pro staff for quite a while. They sent me some materials recently, and it's been a while since we tied with some Squimpish hair, so if you want, we have a coupon code 15% off, LI Flies Mike on their website, so we'll leave a link down below. As usual, you can find the full list of materials down in the description below, and today we're going to be using a Gamakatsu Big Game SL12S 2-odd. Now, one thing I recommend with flies like this, you can always add a lead keel. Otherwise, you need to keep the fly quite sparse, especially because the Senyo's laser dub that we're going to be adding. So something that you could do that I didn't do here is add a lead keel, and it's quite advisable with flies like this, just to help get them to turn over. Otherwise, you can use larger hooks as well to help aid in that sort of situation. But we're going to get started off here using some white bucktail, and this will be the support for our tail section. I usually like using white bucktail for the support if I'm going with a hackle tail or any sort of ostrich curl or something like that. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be using some thin white saddle hackle here, and we're going to essentially just tent this. You've seen me do this before. Instead of tying it perfectly flat or horizontally, we're going to take it and tie it at a 45-degree angle so the feathers are sitting like a tent up against each other. So we're just going to take two nice long thin saddle hackles here, and these are the type of hackle that we use for flat wings. And we're just going to tie these, tenting them. Then we can go ahead and take some pearl Flashabou here. I'm just going to take 4 or 5 pieces, fold it in half, and then loop this and put this right on top and tie it down. And when it comes to the flash, you can use any sort of color flash or any type of flash you like. I just like using pearl Flashabou a lot in my flies. Then what we can do is take 2 more thin pieces of saddle hackle and just tent this right on top. And this is going to give us a nice thin wispy tail that's going to be getting a ton of movement in the fly. So taking some super glue here, we're going to use the super glue and secure the thread wrapping down and just use like a piece of paper here to essentially spread that super glue around. So we're going to be using some Squimpish hair. Again, shout out to the folks at Squimpish Flies for sending some material over. They usually send some material around the time of fly shows and whatnot. It's always fun getting some new material and seeing what sort of colors we have to play with. So we're going to start off with white. Now we're going to be doing a lot of hollow ties here. You don't have to just hollow tie Squimpish hair. You see me do it a lot because it's my favorite way of using it. But you could certainly take this stuff and just tie it on traditionally, or even do high-low ties, any sort of different techniques that you would normally use with bucktail. But all we're going to do here is just take a pinch of Squimpish hair. We're going to get the shorter hairs out of the way, and we're just going to tie this in a classic hollow style, using minimal thread wraps and keeping our thread wrapping really tight and making sure that they're horizontally and vertically straight, so that way when we fold it back, the material is even. And we're just going to be using white on both top and bottom. I like using white for the tail and for the rear sections of the body. It just gives us, I think, a more natural looking appearance to a lot of different bait fish that we're trying to imitate. So now something I like doing with Squimpish hollows, because the material is so soft, taking a small amount of bucktail, and it doesn't even need to be the best quality bucktail, but you want it to be just soft enough to be able to do a basic hollow tie with. All I'm going to do is take a little bit of bucktail and put that on the inside, top and bottom, and spread it around. And when we fold this hollow tie back here and weave our thread through, this is going to provide some support underneath the Squimpish hair and give us a more exaggerated flare. So all we're going to do here is take my trusty pusher tool. You can either use a bank pen. They have those free bank pens. Take the top off that. Or you can use something like a spool of thread. And I'm just going to push the material back, weave my thread through, being careful not to catch any of the material with my thread. And after weaving it through and pulling the material back, now we can build a thread dam in front of the material. You don't want to tie on top of it. You want to build a thread dam in front of it. The more thread that you wrap in front of it, the more it'll compress the material down. So the less thread, you'll get a more exaggerated profile, and with more thread, you'll have a less exaggerated profile, a more slimmed down profile. So after getting it to where we like it, I'm just going to wrap it down a little bit more. We can take some super glue here, not only secure the thread wrapping. This is important on hollow ties, I found, because over time thread wrapping can slip when it's under pressure. But not only that, after spreading the super glue around, we can take a little bit of the paper here has some of this super glue on it, and I'm just actually going to run it on the base of the Squimpish hair. You don't want to get too much super glue onto the Squimpish hair. In the past, I used to kind of form a shell, which at times I still do. The Squimpish hair reacts chemically to the super glue, but just taking a little bit and applying it to the base can help make it more durable. So now we're just going to move forward, leaving ourselves some room here, and we're going to do one more hollow tie. And one thing you learned with doing hollow ties is you always start with the darkest color on top first. We're actually going to be using olive and some pink. So by tying the white first on the belly, flipping it over, then we can tie our olive down. When we fold this back, the olive will be on top. So if you want a lighter color, like the pink we're going to be using here, you want to tie that on the inside of the dark color. Speaking of some pink Squimpish hair, we have the boutique blends here. And this is a package that they sell that I bought myself at a local fly shop, and I use this generally when I'm tying big hollows, but this has angel hair or Winnin Flash type flash mixed in already, so it's kind of like a pre-blended Squimpish hair. With that added flash, it makes it a lot easier to tie with at times. So we're going to go ahead and tie some of this on the inside of the olive, and this will give us some nice pink color when we fold it back underneath that olive. And just like last time, we're going to take a very small amount of bucktail and tie that on the inside here. Now something I wanted to note, probably should have went just ever so slightly sparser with the material. So it's a very fine line between having too much and too little at times with hollow ties. And this is part of the challenge of tying hollow flies, where it's kind of like improving your golf swing over time. It's something that you're constantly going to be working on. So this is where adding like a lead keel can help at times. So just be mindful of the amount of material that you're putting on your fly in relation to the weight of the hook and whether or not you have a keel, for instance. So I probably should have added a slight keel to this fly. So something just to be mindful of when you're tying flies like this. So now after we've folded our material back, you can see that we have our olive on top and our pink on the inside here. And I'm just trying to get the profile to where I like it. Building my thread dam in front of the material, and like I said, depending on how much thread you wrap in front of the material, you can adjust the profile of the fly. So we'll go ahead and hit this with some super glue again to lock down that thread wrapping. And now something that we can do, normally we'd just finish the fly like this. We'd put some eyes on there. I would generally try to get the hollow tie a little bit farther forward so we have less thread wrapping there. But what we're going to do is we left ourselves a tiny bit of room here. We're going to take some Senyo's laser dub, and we're just going to wrap this on the front here. Now again, something to be mindful of is how much material we're using, right? You want to try and keep this sparse, but this is going to add a nice big head to the front of the fly, which is going to cause the water to hit this large head on the fly and then flow back and cause a ton of movement in the Squimpish hair and the tail. So if you've never seen me tie with this stuff before, generally what I do is I'll do like a 60-40 style tail. Well, I'll have 60% of the length of the material off the back and 40% off the front. And then what I do is I just fold it back. So essentially just wrap right down in the middle. This is what I like to call like a hybrid hollow tie, if you will. And you want to make sure that your thread wrappings are perfectly even top and bottom, and you want to keep them tight so that way we don't end up with a big gap underneath where we fold it back. So again, we'll take our pusher tool here and just weave our thread right through this and try not to catch any of the material. And this is nice where you have the two colors or your tie top and bottom. It doesn't matter if it's the same color or not, but this is where you're going to weave your thread through, is where the two materials meet, because that's where you'll get the cleanest area to pull that thread through without catching any material. And then just like we did before, we're going to wrap in front of it here. You can build up a little bit of a larger thread dam if you want for this head section, because it's not like a hollow tie. But we're just going to wrap in front here. I'm trying to keep it light. I don't like having too large of a thread dam on the front of my flies. And now we can go ahead and start kind of positioning the material. It's nice to take the Senyo's laser dub and pull it on the sides where it meets and make sure that the material is evenly spread. So now we're going to take our trusty fine wire dog brush here and brush it out. Get a lot of the shorter hairs out of that Senyo's laser dub, and also make sure that none of the Squimpish hair is tangled up within itself. Compared to other synthetic materials, Squimpish hair is much easier to work with. Other synthetics will tangle up much easier, so. But it's always nice to brush out the fly after you've tied it and before you put the eyes on. Speaking of which, the eyes, we're going to take some 3D eyes here. You could obviously use something like jungle cock or some sort of artificial feather eyes substitutes, but I'm going to go ahead and take some 3D eyes here, and using E6000, which is a kind of like a super strong construction type adhesive. This is what I use for 3D eyes when attaching it to synthetic and natural materials a lot of times. It's very simple. All you need to do is take a pretty healthy amount of the E6000 and put it on the back side of the eye, and then take the eye and apply some of the E6000 to the material. It makes it much easier to work with. And then take the eye, press it down into the material, and then push it backwards, and this will spread that glue evenly across the face of the 3D eye, the backside that is. You need to be careful making sure that none of the glue squeezes out. This is where you can use a bodkin or your finger to clean it up, making sure to pull away from the eye and try not to get any of it on the materials. It can be a little tricky, so I recommend starting off with a small amount of E6000 when you're trying to put the eyes on. I've glued thousands and thousands of eyes like this over the years though, so I've gotten it down pretty good when it comes to if I make a mistake, I can clean it up. Well, and there we go. This is a hybrid Squimpish hollow fly using some Senyo's laser dub. Again, I probably could have scaled this up to something like a 3-aught or a 4-aught hook, for instance. Something I actually had to do was thin out a little bit the amount of Senyo's laser dub in here, just to make sure that it was swimming properly. It's a fantastic fly whether you're trying to imitate something or using it as a searching pattern. So I actually got a little inspiration with the olive and pink here to kind of go for like a pseudo rainbow trout sort of color. Even though the profile is a little bit larger, even though this is quite a large profile, once this fly is actually under pressure and in the water, it'll definitely slim down quite a lot. So I figured a rainbow trout pattern might not be the worst. So taking a Sharpie here, I'm just going to go ahead and apply a random pattern, not even using any reference or anything like that, just applying light dots and barring here and there throughout the fly to give it some sort of natural camouflage. And obviously you could tie this in one color, you could tie this in a more realistic quote-unquote color like what I'm doing here, or you could go two-tone. You could make it bright, fluorescent pink. So really, it's more so the pattern and the technique. The colors are just really up to your personal choice and depending on the conditions and what you're fishing. There we go. That's the finished hybrid Squimpish hollow. Again, just pretty much using some basic natural materials that we love using: bucktail and feathers, Squimpish hair hollows, and some Senyo's laser dub on the head. It's the sort of fly that'll push a lot of water, will get a fish's attention via its lateral line. And again, like I said, these sort of flies are not limited to one species or something like that. These are just generic bait fish flies that you can use to either imitate a specific type of bait fish or just make a really great attractor fly that'll get a fish's attention. And again, one of the reasons that I love using Squimpish hair is that it's very hard getting high quality bucktail nowadays at a reasonable price, and this stuff is a great alternative to that for somebody like me who, even though I do this stuff for a living, I'm not always looking to spend $30 on a bucktail, for instance. So it's a really great way to achieve a 3D profile with the fly using the hollow ties and then the Senyo's laser dub in front to give it a nice bulky head in the front for that action in the rear. Now, unfortunately, I had an issue with my swim tank, as you could see. So I had a hard time getting this thing to swim properly, but I lost a couple of the little buttons on the side of the inside of the tank, and what that does is it keeps the tube from moving. So I'm gonna have to figure something out because I've been jerry-rigging it with the bodkin up top. But anyways, this fly looks fantastic in the water, and it's kind of hard to get certain flies to swim properly in the tank. This sort of fly, if I took it down to the water, that's where it really starts to shine. Being swum in a river, a creek, or fished in a lake, that's where this fly really starts to shine. Well, thank you again for watching, and thanks to the folks at Squimpish for sending some material over. And if you guys want a discount, we actually have a code that you can use at squimpishflies.com. It's LIFliesMike, and you can get 15% off. Now, I don't get any money or anything from that other than they send me some materials from time to time, but more so a way for you folks to save some money if you want to try the material or if you enjoy using it. It's a way for me to help support a company that I really like and support. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Mike from LIFliesMike. We have new fly time videos coming out every week. We have live fly time streams on Friday nights and early access for members. Thank you again. Have a great season out there this year. And as always, tight lines.